How's it going, guys? This is Paul with Major Bass, also Mission Fishing. I'm here today with Anastasia Patterson, bass fishing professional.
What's up, guys?
Crazy good at throwing at cypress. We saw that today. Accurate as like a sniper.
You think so?
Yeah, it was good.
That's
like
kind.
I kind of had like this fear that like you would come out here and be intimidated by the cover, but you like embraced it and like went after it. So for me, that was good. So I'm like impressed.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
No stranger to the cypress trees.
Yeah.
No, I would
So
be.
South Carolina, right?
Yes. I live on Santee Cooper, but I fish kind of all over South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, kind of all over the country right now. But
Right.
yeah.
So look out. It's going to happen. Because if you're throwing like she throws, there's monsters. There's monsters coming. So I want to ask you a couple questions first. How did you get started in fishing, like from your earliest memory?
Perfect. So my dad owns a sportsman's club, so literally before I can even remember, I was hunting and fishing. He jokes that he carried me like a croaker sack, like a bag of
Right.
potatoes everywhere that he went. I kind of went, but my like fondest memories as a child mostly all were like outside,
Right.
and then fishing was something that I felt like I was called to at a really, really young age. There's a newspaper in my hometown called The Item. I was 4 years old, and they were like highlighting sports stars.
Right.
And they're like, you know, girls that do cheerleading and softball. And I was in there for fishing at 4 years old.
Oh, nice.
So kind of crazy. And then we talked about it a little bit. But when I was 6, I went to a Bassmaster weigh-in. And there was a guy that really put on a clinic for everyone to see, like over 100 pounds of bass. And I told my dad, I want to be on that stage one day. And then I kind of got to retell that story this year at the Bassmaster Open at Santee, which I didn't have the best go at it on the home pond, but that kind of happens. But yeah, the Lord is good, and I've kind of found my feet in the fishing industry at this point now, I feel like.
Yeah. And you're doing well for yourself, like so.
Feels that way right now.
Up and coming, right? So with that in mind and talking about your home pond, so where's your headspace when you're, you know you're going into a tournament? Well, let's say day of, you're backed in, everything's ready to go, you're just waiting for your number. Where are you mentally?
A lot of times I'm deep in prayer.
Yeah.
There's there's nothing that can distract me, or either I'm like, you know how you get the best sunrises on the water?
Right.
I'm just like taking in the moment, like, okay, I might not ever get this opportunity again after today. So a lot of times I'm not necessarily thinking about like, oh, I need to catch those 5 fish. I'm thinking like, okay, we're going to go here first, then we're settle in. Then I always try to tell my I'm like, this is what we're going to do today. And 9 out of 10 times it doesn't happen that way at all.
Best laid plans.
Sometimes I will get in a brain. It kind of depends on, how far the drive is to the ramp. I've found that out. If I'm staying at an Airbnb or a hotel that's like 45 minutes away, that whole time I'm in the truck, I'm either sitting in silence or I'm blaring music. And then sometimes if I'm having like a little, how you miss 2, 3, 5, 6 fish in the day, where it's like, okay, something's got to give. I've had recently to learn not to get as angry and just, let go and hope that you'll stumble upon the right fish. But obviously, sometimes I do a lot of moving around.
Yeah.
That was a lot of words to answer that. But.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what I was looking for, right? So you mentioned blaring music. What's your jam?
I am like a Christian rap person. Like I love a good Christian song or old country. Like on the way here, me and my mom were listening to like Sugarland. Okay. And I love Forrest Frank. He's like a kind of pop Christian. Right. And then like Gretchen Wilson. Okay. And then Meg Maroney had a new album. It's kind of sad to listen to while ever you're fishing. But
right.
Just kind of like, vibey music, I guess.
Right.
But then everyone says like you can't catch fish whenever there's music and stuff going on. Right. Seems like I catch fish more when that's happening because I'm like more so focused on like a rhythm. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't
know. I'm not like an AC/DC, kind of probably disappointing.
Right.
But
no, not at all. Actually, kind of refreshing that it's not. Yeah. So today we go out and you throw the buzzbait, catch a couple on that. We had some out in the middle around those mossbacks. When you're fishing, like what is the buzzbait your go-to technique, or do you have like Do you have a plethora, or are you like maybe 5?
Oh, I've got a lot of stuff I really, really love to throw. Today, you really got to see me have that buzzbait in my hand. But at home, if after about 8 o'clock, I'm putting the buzzbait down. I know that people say you can have a buzzbait and throw it all day.
Yeah.
You can throw a frog all day. My brain does not let me throw one thing all day. It doesn't matter if I've caught 200 fish on it in a day.
Right.
I don't know why. Besides probably like a wacky rig.
Right.
I feel like that's something, you know, you could skip it. You can just pitch it out there.
Right, super versatile.
Yes,
yeah.
but I love to throw like bladed jigs, thunder crickets, really big a go-to.
Yeah.
I would say I'm more of a power fisherman than a finesse fisherman.
Okay.
But you did see me pick the drop shot
Yeah,
up.
I did.
So
I did.
I don't know. We talked about
so
it.
So you don't really have like, I mean, like you have the ones that you're super confident in, and that's like your chatterbait, your buzzbait. What would be one of the last things you would fish?
Controversial. Forward-facing sonar minnow.
Really?
Have like no confidence that I'm going to catch a fish in it.
Right. And
it makes no
probably
sense.
Well, and that's probably because you've seen it. You've seen it go right in front of the fish, and then you know that what you're doing will catch a fish, but yet they still don't even hit it.
But I think if you ask me that same question like a year from now, when I'm like more comfortable with my forward-facing sonar and I've fished more places with it, then I would say, oh yeah, I'm really great with this. I tried not to make myself like, oh, she's a jig fisherman, or she's, because I mean, I don't know if you've seen the weights, but it used to be, you know, you fish the opens, or there'd be like 120 boats. There's like 250 plus people, so you have to be able to adapt to a lot of different things. Yeah. The other thing, just because I don't fish for smallmouth that much, say like a hair jig, but we're not necessarily using that here in Florida.
Right. Well, I do.
See, didn't even know.
But I don't probably as often as I used to, and that was, you know, but only because of like the same, you know, sort of the same topic that we're talking about. Like, I'm confident with some things, and that's what I'm going to use because that's going to get fish. So when I'm guiding, I will put people on what I know is going to catch fish immediately, because I don't use shiners. I know what lures are going to catch, especially I'm out here, you know, a lot. The frequency's high, so I know they're going to catch with certain things. So it's absolutely like that. So let's talk about Bassmaster for a minute. How is that? And how has that changed your life? And like, where do you see yourself in this situation, let's say 5 years from now? Okay,
cool. So Bassmaster is an initiative, obviously, to get more women involved in the fishing industry. No matter how old you are, if you are 3 years old, or that little girl at the weigh-in, or if you are someone's wife, sister, a cousin, what have you, and you're just wanting to get out and learn at 45, 50, 60, 70, it's for all ages. From, you know, we've seen a lot of women in the fishing industry. It might not seem like it, but be incredibly successful. You know, they used to have the Bass and Gals back in the day. Then we've got like Pam Martin Wells, Jimmy Houston's wife, Chris Houston. Prior wife was very successful in the fishing industry. Then you've got people who even like at Fishing Tackle Retailer, there's a lot of women in the industry that don't necessarily have roles in just being a fisherman. So Bassmaster is about all of the women as a whole. And obviously me, Christine, Fisher, and Maggie Jo Carciello are the face of it. But however, just being the face of it doesn't, we are a representation of it, but we're not necessarily just what it is. And then with the initiative has come these workshops. We've had 3 this year, and they plan to have more, I know, next year. They go along with elite events. So we were down here in Florida at the St. Johns River in Palatka, and then we just wrapped up in Decatur at Wheeler about a few weeks ago. And then about a month from now, we're going to be August 19th at Waddington, New York. So literally kind of all over this side. Hopefully next year, I know a lot of people want to see it go to Texas or see it go somewhere else. But, you know, wherever their schedule kind of goes, that's where Bassmaster is going to go. But, you know, even though they do have that platform, and then people always ask, how do you get involved? Literally all you have to do, send an email to bassmaster@bassmaster.com and just say like, hey, I'm a woman who does XYZ, or I want to know more about Bassmaster, and they'll send all the information. Or they have a hyperlink on their website where you can find out, you know, more about it. But what kind of the workshop looks like and what the women go through in the workshop, obviously there's like a little swag bag. That's just like a thank you for coming.
Right.
These are also free events. So that's like you never get more time with like 3 people in the room who could answer your question as a woman. Because a lot of times we're having to go ask a guy on tour or go ask someone at the service trailer. These are where you can ask real questions where, some men might feel uncomfortable to answer.
Right.
And in a room where it's, a comfortable setting and that there's no judgment at all. So we've kind of at the workshops gone through basic lure technique, going through seasonal bait selection, as well as rod and reel action setups,
gear ratios, line weights,
literally
things like that.
Everything that seems very mundane to us, but if you don't know, then you've got to have that.
Couldn't be a better place to find out,
right?
Right. So it almost reminds me of like the way you're describing it, like the way the Bassmaster universities were before they put it online, right? Like you could go to that. Now that wasn't free, of course, but you could go to that event and you could actually interact with pros or people that you had seen. So it's kind of like that.
It's kind of like a friendly, I wouldn't want to say classroom because we are teaching you, but it's a lot of discussion during the time. The first event was super cool. We had kind of, like I said earlier, about a multitude of people, but there was people who were riders who just wanted to know more about fishing, Then there was a couple elite anglers' wives and mothers there. That was cool. Second event, we had a lot of women from all over the country. A lady came all the way to Alabama from Texas. She drove because she wanted to meet 2 or 3 of us, and just to meet us, not even really to learn because she knew. And then the girl I'm fishing the iCast Cup with came from Florida to that event just so we could kind of network a little bit before.
So that's kind of cool, but like so going from what was happening in your life prior to that, is it kind of intimidating walking into that situation where now like there's this media presence on you and like now you're being recognized in places where like you kind of lose some of your anonymity, so to speak?
I would say yes and no, but I really for so long, I think you kind of know this, but I'm really grounded in my faith, and I know that the Lord has been setting this up. So there are times where I've felt like, maybe I'm not good enough to be doing this, and I don't necessarily feel like a lot of things in life, I don't deserve all of this and this sort of thing. But it really just is grace that has kind of gotten me.
Well, and the hard work too, because there's no doubt, the time we spent out here today, when I fish with people, you can see if they're, legitimate about it, if they're real about it, and you can see that you definitely have the techniques down, your sound and your casting, and so I know you grind, I know you put the work in, and that's so, knowing that, and then knowing also what He gives us, right? Like there's this whole thing that when it coalesces, it's like this great picture, but it doesn't. So basically, I'm asking is it overwhelming sometimes and
it can be. Actually, at the first Bassmaster workshop, I was the only Bassmaster face that was there, so kind of me and Mr. James Hall led the workshop, and then the CEO of Bass stopped in, so they kind of got to see faces of people that they probably didn't know existed, but the fact that the CEO of Bass would even come to something like that shows that they do care about women in the sport. The overwhelming part for me was actually I do this with my brides, I do this with people at the jewelry store, but I pray before every event, over the people that they get there safe, that sort of thing. Well, after I was sitting in my hotel room, all by myself, and it was just I had this wave of emotion come over me, and I was like, holy crap, this is my real life.
Yeah.
I couldn't be more blessed to get to chase fish, get to teach people about fish, because I'm not that old. I am getting up there, but literally
says her to me
10 years ago. I get to coach a juniors team of second graders.
Yeah.
If I could have half the knowledge that I could give someone in the second grade, imagine how good I would be when I'm 45.
Right. So we kind of talked about because we do kids events, and it's so rewarding, especially when you get to work with kids who are maybe underserved, underprivileged, and they don't really have either the economic backbone to get into it, and then they show up to something and they're given a fishing pole and given tackle, and it gives them the opportunity to get out there and do it. But not only that, but to also have someone like you, like explain, okay, well, don't use this on this day, use this. So yeah, it's huge, right? And I feel like the give back is the biggest part of it. So with this going on now, where do you see this in 5 years? Do you see yourself like?
Well, I mean,
I know you're doing the opens.
I kind of got foot on the gas with the opens right now. So I only fished 3 this year. I really was like kind of dead set on fishing all 9, but just with life and everything going on, and just kind of like, the start of a program, you don't want to set something up for failure, of course. So I thought, okay, we'll get our feet wet. But now, like I've already told you, I'm like, I don't care what happens. I'm getting into all 9 next year. And I think that also, like, yes, it is discouraging to not do well at every tournament. But I get so much good feedback from girls saying, like, hey, it was just so good to see you in the boat. Like, catching the fish is a bonus sometimes. It's like getting to go out there and chase these fish. I know that I'm not the best fisherman on the planet, but I know that I have all of the tools to be that person, Obviously in 5 years from now, at some point, like I did say, I am getting a little old. So I would love to be a mother too at some point in life. I don't know if that's 5, 10, 15 years from now, but at some point in life. But with Bassmaster, I really think, it's given a platform for a voice that has been there, but hasn't necessarily been able to speak at the level that we have.
Not resonate maybe, or reverberate throughout the community as well as
and even like at the Classic this year, Toyota and Bassmaster had a lot of signages about Bassmaster, about getting, just women in fishing. And there have been lots of initiatives to get women in fishing that have failed. There have been lots of women who have tried to,
run the race,
live this life and run the race, and you get to a point where you're like, okay, I've got children, I've got this to do, so I don't have the answer for why a woman's never made it. But I also know that there 30 years ago in tennis weren't as many women as there are now. There weren't 30 years ago
WNBA or so many other
even
entities.
Like we've seen in the past 2 years, the WNBA has taken off. It's been an entity for a very long time. But I can't tell you how many men are tuning in to watch that on TV,
And I'm sure that's like you can't really call it, but I do feel like definitely the publicity that you guys are getting. And also, they were smart for who they picked, because you're very positive, and like you said, you're very grounded, you have faith, and I feel like that's important, right? Like, you picked the wrong spokesperson and you could be in it, right? So I feel like they were very smart, and you guys do a great job. I mean, I pay a lot of attention to the industry as a whole, but we're seeing you guys a lot, and that's why when we talked at the Classic, I was like, you should come and fish, and let's get together. And I kind of have like a unique situation here, so it was like, it's very private.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, it's cool, right? So, like, I knew we wouldn't see another bass boat all day. So it's like we have the chance to get out here and just like really do the thing. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times, like, if you're on a bigger lake, especially with a wrapped boat or like your profile, someone goes by and then the next thing you know, they're coming back, hey, So that doesn't happen here. So I felt like it was really kind of like a great opportunity for us to kind of get together and talk and kind of get some insight as to like you and I have 2 daughters. Both my daughters fish. They love to fish, but I don't even think they've ever considered like that they could do that as a profession. So it's very refreshing to me, and I feel like, and you guys fish with the men in the opens, so I feel like it's just a matter of time until somebody cracks it, and I think it will definitely be history making, right? So
yeah, and like people say, they're like, oh, your tournament record's not that great, and I'm like, I suffered before I had the nitro. Obviously, I've suffered really bad boat problems. It seemed like for every tournament, and it wasn't necessarily my catchability; it was my
the logistics side.
Yes,
of it.
I think a lot of times that people see on paper, they're like, oh, there's no way you can catch them, because this is how it looks on paper.
Well,
but
I saw her today. She can catch them. That's one of the things I think is really kind of unique about this sport. If it's not a test of strength, to whether or not you could reel in a 12 pounder, that's not the thing. So a man and a woman versus each other in this situation, a lot of times my daughters will catch bigger fish than me or my son. And I feel like there's a level of focus that they have that I would never have. But like, so it's not like weightlifting or swimming or basketball or football. So I feel like, you know, at any point in time, it's feasible. It's not like out of the realm of reality. And so I feel like this is one of those sports where everyone can kind of compete and coalesce together and really, you know, those boundaries sort of fall off, that competitive style, that competitive, oh, men do better, whatever, that whole kind of thing goes out the window.
So even you talking about that, it kind of just, when I think about my mental like state, you know, when I go fishing, I started playing pickleball like about a year ago. And I know this is really crazy, but like with pickleball, my focus has changed a lot. Of like, even just knowing like, okay, the ball's coming here, my feet need to be grounded, I need to do this sort of thing. And then like, even today, whenever we were out, I felt like I was hypersensitive to like what's going on around me. Kind of in fishing and in the industry, it's kind of coinciding with Bassmaster and what they're doing. But this like awareness of like when the right time comes. And
I'll tell you, for me, mental acuity, right? So I worked in motorsports for a while, and for them, that's huge. Like they do all these crazy drills with like tennis balls where you have to focus forward and they'll throw it left or right and you still have to catch it, whatever. But out here, for instance, when I caught the fish on the backhand side, just seeing a ripple in the water, seeing a lily pad move, kind of opposite of what's actually happening naturally. Those are the things that like I do, you know, like paying attention to that. But that kind of speaks to like life too, right? Like, so it's kind of like a euphemism of life. And I feel like fishing is too, because every day in life you're going out and putting out the best that you have. You're casting that line out. You're putting your best presentation forward, hoping to be successful. And I feel like the symbiotic relationship of life, patience, and fishing, you know, golf. Someone told me that they felt like golf was kind of like that too. I'm terrible at golf, but but for me, this is one of those things where like even if I'm having a rough time, and I'm sure it's probably like that for you too. I know most of us that love fishing, that's a big thing for us. This is the recentering. This is where we come to like bring it all back together and make sense, even though you're still trying to be, like in competition, you're still trying to catch as big as you can, but you're still at least in that environment where you feel like super comfortable.
Oh, I agree. And like, I feel like people know me like from the opens, but then I think about it, I'm like, oh no, I fished the Toyotas, I fished the BFLs, I fished like the grassroots Bass Nation, I fished the CBC, I fish at home.
So for those of you who are just seeing her or just started seing her, she's been around. It's not like she didn't just land here. She didn't just show up.
I've been putting in the work. I fished in college. We didn't have high school, but I helped start a fishing team in college. And really, like from the business side, my college is what put me, my college team, my college coach is what put me in the position that I actually am, if you think about it, because we had the opportunity to be at the last ever Forest Wood Cup, and like a college team set up there. So we were talking to, you know, everyone that was at Lake Murray. And then also the Classic came to Greenville. So we were kind of
like
in
perfect timing, right?
And I was like, I can't remember, maybe junior, senior, sophomore, somewhere in the last, 3 years of college, the last 2 years of college. And all of the people that I needed to talk to were kind of like in these spaces. And I was like, hey, I'm Anastasia Patterson, nice to meet you. And they're like, okay. And a lot of times you're going to get that where people are like, okay, I don't know you. And then you have to like warm up to them a lot at like Bassmaster workshops. People do ask, especially women, like, oh, how do you go about sponsorships? How do you go about partnerships? For everything that I have in life and everything you have, and I'm sure everyone else, there's been some reason why we've wanted it.
Oh, absolutely, right.
If I see these like new Lululemon shorts every week, and it's the same ones I already have, but it's a new color. I'm like, I don't need it, but I want it. Like, that's how sponsors feel about a lot of people, right? They're like, we don't need 5 people, but we would like 5 people. But if we have one person that could do all of these things, then that's just as good. So you have to make yourself where you're marketable. We talked about that today a lot too, but I felt like I was at college at the right time for those events, and that, you know, I kind of made contacts with people. I've never met a stranger. I am kind of shy, but not at the same time.
Right. Outgoing enough just to get yourself in trouble.
And yeah, right.
Yeah.
I do love to instigate a situation. I might not participate, but
Right.
I will say, you know, like
Right.
what happened.
So not exactly like an extrovert, but like just enough that you've put yourself in some very, you know, advantageous situations.
Yes, I'm either the host.
Right.
Or I am the person at the party who is going to stay there from the time it starts to it ends,
Right.
but I am not going to necessarily participate, but I'm going to show you love by showing up, you know?
Right, yeah.
Like, that's how I feel about tournaments, too.
Yeah.
I might not win the party, but I'm going to show up at it every time.
Well, I feel like, just from what I saw today, I feel like, you know, you're going to do some cool stuff. I feel like you're going to end up in one where you're walking up on stage and...
Oh, it's definitely going to happen. I had a tournament last year where if I had a sack and I was about 28 miles from the ramp and my power head went out.
Ugh.
And didn't see a single boat go where I went. And I had 0 signal to call the tournament director. My motor was in limp mode. This was not my current boat.
Right.
Motor went into limp mode, and I could not figure out what to do for the life of me. Took the cowling off, took the oil cap off. A wake boat comes by. No one had been by me all day. My cap goes into the water. And so I had to take off my shirt and put it in there to hold
the oil. Yeah.
And then I stopped, put more oil in, finally got signal. And then by the time that happened, 3 of the 5 fish I had were dead. And I think I had like 4 minutes to weigh. And it was just not necessarily embarrassing, like things are going to happen.
Right.
But I also think that like I've become so grounded because of stuff like that happening.
And that's something I tell my kids, and God puts us in situations even when it's like the worst, right? Like we still have to be thankful for that, because you know at some point like you're being sharpened for that next challenge. And so just going through that was enough to give you enough of a mindset that like, you know, you have to have faith. And yeah, this is going to hurt, but it's going to hurt for a reason, and I should be thankful for this as well. You know?
Like, I don't know if you've ever heard the song God Problems, but you're going to have God problems, you're going to have boat problems, you're going to have life problems.
Yeah.
Like, real life doesn't stop whenever I go out onto the boat,
Right.
but it seems like that's where, like, my life starts every time.
Yeah,
it's
magnified,
like,
right?
Yeah, like, I get on the lake and I'm like, wow, this is really, like, creation. Like, even just seeing a school of bait,
Right.
I get, like, the goosebumps. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay.
like today, all those schooling fish, and you're throwing stuff at them and they're not hitting, so.
And even though you know they're there,
Yeah.
and I mean, like, we went out today, no forward-facing sonar. We didn't really even use electronics, and we had a great time.
Yeah, oh yeah. Caught a lot of fish.
Yes.
But, so, honestly, I am so stoked that we got to hang out. ICAST is coming up. I want to cap it off with this one. So you are doing the MC for ICAST, right? You're doing.
Gonna be running the socials. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, so I'm gonna be running social medias at the show. So pretty much, if you see me,
I'm just gonna be hanging out with
come
you.
hang out. What that kind of looks like, I try to make it a point to go around to, you know, first all the sponsors of the show.
Right.
Make sure the sponsors have a highlight. Then highlight, you know, fish celebrities, people that are very well known.
I've never heard it put that way, fish celebrities.
And then also, you know, someone who's like, this is my first time ever at ICAST, and this is why I've come to ICAST and this sort of thing. Or, you know, those people who just started out kind of in the industry, because there's no better show for the whole sport fishing industry
it's insane.
than
the
ICAST.
Largest. And if you guys aren't familiar with it, and if you've never been, it's
gotta get there.
Yeah, it's insane. So this will be my 4th year, and I think it's the world's largest fishing trade show, and it is entirely insanity.
International.
Yeah, and just some of the coolest innovations, some of the neatest products, some of the newest stuff that you can't even imagine.
Never seen, never imagined. Every year I think, oh, it's going to be the same old stuff. And then you get there and you're like,
yeah, who thought of that? Right?
How in the world did they? And then it's like it just keeps getting better and better and better.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's kind of cool because there's people who necessarily are very endemic in the industry.
Right.
And then there's even been people who are far outside and they like break into the sport fishing world. So that's really cool. And you got freshwater, saltwater, you got fly fishing. There's going to be a really big fly shop this year. I think it's going to be cool.
I heard. So one of my good friends works for Bass Pro Shops. He is, I think he's one of the best fly fishermen I've ever met. But he every year does the casting demonstration, and he's so good at it. Like no false casts, and he's like throwing 180 feet, and you're like, what? So yeah, it's super cool. But yeah, pleasure fishing with you today.
Can't wait.
Come back.
Appreciate
anytime.
you. I'll be back
you
soon.
Come and hang out. And
if you come down to Santee Cooper or anywhere,
we're gonna have to.
Holler at me. Sure.
I think we're gonna actually be in South Carolina this year. Hopefully, we're gonna be there. But
I'll come see you.
Yeah, anytime you're in Florida, give me a shout. Bring your dad with you. Let's get him out on the lake.
Oh yeah.
Anastasia Patterson, everyone. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like, follow, share. See ya.